Okay, it happened like this. It was the middle of the night. My wife woke me up, and there at my bedroom door was a police officer, and he was saying something about my son, and he had to repeat it, and it told me that my 17-year-old son was at the emergency room, and things didn't look good, and they probably needed to get there right away. It was just kind of surreal, you know? I mean, I know it was me that drove the car to that emergency room, but it didn't seem like it was me. It seemed like it was someone else. It's like I was just watching from a distance. And anyway, I got to the emergency room and stepped inside, and there was this table there, and there was this man laying on this table, and he had tubes and wires and coming out of him, and there was a woman standing beside him weeping, and I was looking around trying to find my son, and then it came into focus that this man on the table with all the tubes and wires, that was my son. And I asked if I could go over and be next to him, but the doctor said no. Instead, he grabbed my arm and pulled me over to the monitor, and he said, I want you to look at this. This is the results of the CT scan. You can see there's bleeding in the brain here. And he said, but that's not our biggest concern. Our concern is during the seizures, the oxygen wasn't reaching his brain, and we just think that for several minutes he didn't have any oxygen going to his brain. And somewhere along the line I heard somebody say, he's not going to make it through the night. Well, the med flight helicopter was unavailable, so they had to get some paramedics to drive him in an ambulance to the trauma center downtown. And so while they did that, I went and gathered up the family. His older brother was working and his sisters were awake, and so his mom and all of us, we made that long trip downtown. And I said to him, I said, you know, this might be the last time that you see your brother alive. When we got downtown, they were starting to sound a little more optimistic. It was like, yeah, you know, there's damage to his heart and there's damage to his kidneys, and we don't know what's going to happen to his brain. But they started to sound like he was going to live, you know? And so my wife and I, we just camped out in that hospital room, the intensive care center, and some family drove from out of state just to sit with us while our son was in that coma. And I remember Cindy Crawford was visiting the hospital, and she stopped at the door of the room, and my wife talked to her, and she got out a photograph of herself and signed it, wrote a note to my son. Well, a couple days later, they took the breathing tube out, and we all kind of held our breath to see if he would breathe on his own, and he did. And then he came to, and he could talk to us, and so the neurologist came in with, I don't know, 5 students in tow and did this EEG on him, and it was kind of crazy because our son didn't quite understand what was going on. He thought he was in a job interview. He couldn't figure out why they needed all these wires, but thought oh well, you know, I'll go with the flow. And I don't know, a few days after that, he was home. Now, why am I telling you all of this? The reason I'm telling you this is because you paid for that. All that medical care, the paramedics, the doctors, the specialists, the neurologists, the CT scan, the EEGs, the breathing tube, the respiratory therapist, all of that, you paid the bill for that. The money for that came out of your pocket. You know, there was a time a few years earlier than that when our family was down to one meal a day. And I was rifling through drawers and kitchen shelves and cabinets and coat pockets looking for loose change. And I remember standing in this aisle at this grocery store and looking at this can of beans, and it looked so good, and I was so hungry. But it was like 65 cents, and all I had was 17 cents in my pocket. And anyway, you paid for our next meal, and you paid for many, many meals after that. I'm telling you this because there's a couple of things I want to say to you. I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you. I mean, thank you. You know, our son is alive because of you. Our family survived because of you. I want you to know that I'm grateful. And I guess I also want to say that I'm sorry. I never imagined, you know, when I was growing up, I never imagined that someday I would be on welfare and that I would take hard-earned money out of your pocket and spend it as my own. And I feel this deep sense of shame that this is what I've done. And so it brings me to this question that I've been asking myself for years. And that is, why am I poor? You know, why am I poor? Am I lazy? I mean, there's a question that has haunted me for much of my life. Am I lazy? There's been many, many times I've gotten up at 4:30 in the morning and worked hard all day long till 10:30 at night. I mean, once or twice I worked 24 hours straight, you know, just stopping to eat and use the bathroom. And this endless loop was just playing in my mind, you know. I gotta make more money. I gotta make more money. Somehow I gotta make more money. I could hardly sleep at night. You know, survival mode does that to you. But I don't know, after a long time of doing this, I for my own mental health and for the sake of my family, I just had to settle into some kind of rhythm or routine that I worked when it was time to work and I rested when it was time to rest. That was hard for me, but that's what I needed to do. And after looking at this question, am I lazy, like again and again and again, I finally decided that, yeah, you know, I have lazy moments, but no, I don't think I'm a lazy person. So why am I poor? You know? Am I stupid? I mean, that's why people are poor, right? Because they're either lazy or stupid. So am I stupid? I think some people would say that I am. You know? Some people have made a set of choices in life, and I've made a different set of choices, and they would look at my set of choices and say, "You're stupid." And I don't know, you know, maybe they're right, but I guess I've always had this mindset, this kind of internal compass that said, I don't want to be a watered down version of somebody else, copycatting, their choices. I wanted instead to be the best version of me. So I don't know. Is that stupid? Maybe it is. I mean, why am I poor? Am I morally deficient somehow? I mean, I think about it. I don't gamble. I'm not a shopaholic. I've made mistakes, but I don't think I've ever abused anyone. I'm not a womanizer. I'm not addicted to porn or drugs or alcohol. I don't know, probably spend too much time playing Scrabble on my phone. I don't know. I can't find this moral deficiency that's condemned me to poverty. Maybe I need to ask a different question. Like, how do I position your abundance and my lack in my brain? How do I make sense of that? Do I decide that there's like some fundamental inequity at work here, that you are prospering at my expense, that this is somehow unfair, that because you are the oppressor and I am the oppressed, that I am entitled to a share of your wealth, that class makes us enemies, that you are the perpetrator and I am the victim. I mean, this is a popular school of thought, so what do you think? Should I adopt this mindset? I made the decision not to. And I decided not to consider you the oppressor and me the oppressed, because if I did that, that would diminish me as a person. What it does, if I do that, it robs me of the power to do anything about my situation, because as long as you are the oppressor and I am the oppressed, then I can't be okay until you change. And I'm sorry, I just don't want to give you that kind of power in my life. I mean, yeah, life sometimes is unfair, but I'm just not going to look for somebody to blame every time something bad happens to me. I decided not to think of you as the perpetrator and me as the victim, because I just don't want to marinate in the venom of my own anger. It's not the person I want to be. I decided not to think that class makes us enemies. I mean, because why should I start a war with you? I want my life not to be about starting fights, but about building bridges, about making peace. I decided not to hate you, because if I hate you, that robs you and me of the opportunity to be friends. Why am I poor? I don't know. Why are you rich? And maybe you don't think of yourself as rich. So, why are you comfortable? What accounts for your success? There's this myth here in America that if you just work hard, you will succeed. Well, if you believe that, maybe you need to step outside your own narrow experience a little bit and look at the real world. I worked hard when I was homeless. I worked hard before becoming homeless. There is a recipe for success. There is. And hard work is an important ingredient in that recipe for success. Just like flour is an important ingredient in the recipe for cake. But it's not the only ingredient. There are other ingredients. And what are those other ingredients? And more importantly, where do they come from? Do all those ingredients for your success come from inside of you? I'm not so sure. Matter of fact, I'm quite sure that some of those ingredients came from parents or mentors or teachers or counselors or consultants or connections or coaches or contacts or friends. The point is, they came from someplace else, someone else. You didn't succeed on your own. You had help. You think of it as a jigsaw puzzle. You get the jigsaw puzzle box, but some of the pieces are missing, and you got to go out in life and find the person or people that have those missing pieces. And you got to get those missing pieces before you can put the puzzle of your own success together. You did not succeed alone. Others helped. Of that, I'm quite sure. And, I want you to know that I'm not threatened by your success. I'm not diminished by it. I don't feel the need to compete with you, like you need to lose so that I can win. I just don't think that way. When I wrap my mind around your abundance and my lack, I just see things differently. I think that you and I are connected. I think that your success is my success. That when you win, I celebrate. And when you hurt, I hurt. I think we're on the same team, you and me. I think we're all on the same team. And if we see ourselves as all on the same team, then maybe you can imagine what I imagine. The end of poverty here in America. Poverty really is unnecessary. And I know you probably think I'm some naive Pollyanna that is unaware of the social and economic realities that keep people entrenched in poverty, yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to stay with what I'm saying. Poverty is unnecessary. The war on poverty can be won. And I can prove it to you real easy with a simple thought experiment. Okay? Here goes. You have 5 years to get me out of poverty. Okay? That's your job. 5 years, get me out of poverty. If you succeed, you get $100 million. Like winning the lottery 5 times in a row. But if you fail, you will be shot. So, let me ask you a question. Are you going to succeed? The answer is obvious. Of course you are. Absolutely you will succeed because failure is not an option. You will figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, you'll find somebody who can figure it out and you'll get the help that's needed so that I can get out of poverty. I mean, you'll mix together the right recipe of respect and understanding and value and motivation and encouragement and opportunity and figuring out what I'm made of and what I have to offer my world, and you will figure out a way to get me out of poverty. You can do it. You know, when failure isn't an option, getting people out of poverty is very, very, very doable. So, anyway, let me just toss this out there. What if we invested in one another? You know? If we're all on the same team, then it becomes so much easier for us to assemble these different ingredients for success. So, look, we don't have $100 million. We don't have the firing squad. So, you know, that's not going to happen. But what if we figured out some other way to do this? Think outside the box. You know? If you've invested hundreds of hours and thousands of dollars in me to get me out of poverty, how can we make this a win for everybody? I mean, of course it's a win for me, you know, because I'm permanently out of poverty. So that is a good thing. And it's a win also for the government, or if you prefer, for the taxpayer, because you no longer have to pay for my food and my health insurance and whatever else the government is paying for, you know? So huge win for the government, the taxpayer, you save all kinds of money. But how about you? How do you win? Well, let me just toss out this squirrely idea and let you think about it for a little bit. You know, here I am, I'm prosperous now, I'm this tax-paying citizen, and you know, every year I'm paying all these taxes to the federal and state governments. What if? I mean, the government already has their win. They're not paying for my welfare. So what if those taxes that I'm now paying to the government were diverted to you? Okay? It's like a return for your investment, a reward for you investing in me, a reward for you getting me out of poverty. What if those taxes were diverted to you? I pay the taxes to the government turns around, cuts a check to you, and you get that. That's your return for investing in me. I mean, you win, right? There's a win for you. I call this tax diversion financing. It's a simple idea, but in my mind, it's a huge game changer. I mean, all of a sudden, it makes financial sense for us to invest in one another, for us to help one another. And instead of financing failure all the time, the government is funding success. The nice thing here is it doesn't cost the government anything, you know? They don't have to raise taxes or come up with this new spending program because it doesn't cost them anything. I mean, everybody wins. I toss it out there, and I admit it's outside the box. I mean, if you prefer a more traditional approach to fighting the war on poverty, I'll give you what's usually tried. There's 5 different things. Number 1 is indifference. You know, it's not my problem, so why should I care? I mean, this comes when people figure that we're not on the same team, that if someone else loses, it's not a loss for me, that's a loss for them, and why should I care? So that's 1, indifference. Number 2 is contempt. It's like, why are you poor? What's wrong with you? I mean, this is a mindset that comes about when people can't see outside their own narrow experience. Number 3, the big one, blame. Blame the poor. Blame the rich. Blame the political party you don't like. or blame welfare addiction, or racism, or globalism, or nationalism, or whatever else you want to blame. And I mean, here's the thing. You might be right. I mean, you might have identified the party that's really at fault. But at the end of the day, even though it feels good to blame someone, has blame ever gotten anybody out of poverty? I mean, can you put one person in front of me who got out of poverty because somebody blamed? Number 4 is class warfare. The whole idea of punish the rich. And, you know, when we talk about rich, we always mean, whoever talks about it, always means somebody richer than me. You know? It's this mindset that says, I must make you lose in order for me to win. And, you know, somehow the wealth is supposed to be redistributed, although I've never seen that happen. I mean, this class warfare is what led to Stalin's gulag, Mao's labor camps. But I don't know, for some reason people keep wanting to try it over again. They think this time they'll get it to work. And number 5 is handouts. I mean, the whole process, I'm talking about welfare, you know, food stamps and Medicaid and the whole shebang. It's the whole process of moving people from bad poverty to better poverty. And in the process, you create this canyon that exists between the poor and the middle class, so that the poor can't get out of poverty, because if they make just a few more dollars, then they lose their food stamps or they lose their health insurance. You know, they can't take that raise, they can't take that better job, because all of a sudden they won't be able to provide medical care for their family. And handouts just changes the government's whole focus from how do I get people out of poverty to how do I prevent welfare fraud. I mean, don't get me wrong. Are handouts necessary? I think they are. I mean, who wants to starve? You know, you can't get out of poverty if you're starving to death. You can't get out of poverty if you're on the side of the road needing to get into an ambulance and go to a hospital. I mean, you got to take care of certain things so you have a foundation from which you get out of poverty. But too many people think that the job is done after you've delivered the handout. The job isn't done. The job is barely started. You know, the job is done when we recognize the value that's in each person, when we cultivate that value, when we deploy it, when people have an opportunity to deliver that value to their world, and they're appropriately rewarded for the value that they bring to the table. That's when the job is done. So, I don't know, you know, indifference, contempt, blame, class warfare, handouts, if you like that better, stick with that and just, you know, go with that. If you think getting us on the same page and on the same team and investing in one another might be a better way of approaching this, and if you think tax diversion financing might be a way to make this happen, then I don't know, maybe this is an idea that's worth sharing, an idea that doesn't need to be Democrat or Republican, left or right, but a human idea, you know, if you want, an American idea, an idea that maybe we can all get behind. You think about it. If you think it's worth sharing, you know what to do. Thanks.